Well, welcome to Unnatural State of Crime. I'm Joe Ellison. Today we're talking about a case that may be one of the most shocking in the state of Arkansas. A couple takes their two young daughters, ages 7 and 9, to go hiking at Devil's Den State Park. They both of the parents were stabbed and murdered on a hiking trail. Now, the daughters, they were able to escape this attack, give police a description of a suspect, which ultimately led to his arrest. Now, this case is has not went to a jury as of now. It's still wrapped up in the courts. There is a tight gag order, so you're not able to talk to investigators, family members, or anyone who may be called to testify whenever this case will go before a jury. But we have since day one gathered so much information, many interviews from the community, also from investigators talking to them from whenever this first happened. And we're going to break this case down from the beginning to the end to what is happening today. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and introduce you to our assistant producer, Jonan Mitchell. And Jonan, I know I just said it, but you've said it over and over, one of the most shocking cases.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's been a long time since there's been a seemingly random killing like this. Not to mention Devil's Den, one of the most beautiful parks in Northwest Arkansas, I'd argue.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, this couple, Clinton and Kristen Brink, they had just moved to this area.
mhm.
And, I could have just imagined someone within the community who knew them said, "Hey, you got to check this state park out. It's beautiful. It's one of a kind. Go there. Your family's going to love it. You guys are going to have a great day." And I imagine that's exactly what they did.
Mhm. I agree. Well, like you were mentioning, just to take it back to this, the just a family outing, 7-year-old, 9-year-old daughter,
Hmm.
just seeing what there is. And I mean, I've been out there, even all the beautiful trails there and a little waterfall and everything. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I just can't imagine the sadness that
Yeah,
goes into that.
Clinton Brink just a couple of days away from starting his brand new job in this area. So much promise, so much to look forward to for this family. And I told you we're going to break down the case for you. 5 News reporter Bill Russell, he's going to join us here in just a moment. He was there from the very first day that police were called to Devil's Den State Park whenever this happened. He's followed this through the hunt for the suspect, when the suspect was arrested, and also where it is now wrapped up in the court system. So we have a lot of questions for him. He's going to tell us about his experience and what he knows. But before we do, let's go ahead and take a look back at how this all unfolded.
Possible stabbing, Devilston State Park.
Two young children were found and indicated that something had happened to their parents.
Here, they're on the lower Devilston Trail. I've got two bodies.
They absolutely protected those girls to the point that they cost them their lives. This investigative team had one mission and one mission only, and that was to put hands on this suspect.
It was right here at this beauty salon in Springdale where the Arkansas State Police arrested Andrew James McGann.
Oh, I was about 5 minutes into the haircut. Something did feel off about him.
He had recently moved here, had taken employment as a teacher. Whether he committed something else, we don't know, but we are certainly going to explore that.
State will not be waiving the death penalty in this case.
All right, 5 News reporter Bo Russell joining us here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Truly appreciate it. Okay, so I want to take you back. July 26, 2025. You hear what happens. What is the first thing you do?
Sure. So I was actually coming back from a shoot in Oklahoma. So
Mm.
I had just done a shoot. There was a fundraiser. I'm driving back, and right around the time I'm coming through the Bobby Hopper tunnel, excuse me, we got a text from our assignment manager and team saying, "Hey, on the police scanner, there's a police presence at Devil's Den, maybe a stabbing. We don't know what it is." So I called him. I said, "I'm about to drive right past the entrance. Why don't I go check it out?" He was like, "Yeah, you should probably go do that." So get off the Winslow exit, go to Devil's Den, and
Which you probably lose cell phone service halfway.
yeah, pretty immediately as you start going down the windy entrance there. And so I realized, okay, if there is something going on, I'm gonna have to come back out. And so when I get there, large police presence, there was a hearse there. a woman crying in front of the visitor center. And so, it hit me, yeah, something's going on here. So I had to drive out, text the assignment manager saying, hey, we should probably send a
Absolutely.
photographer.
And,
Yeah.
and so was it hard to figure out what was going on?
Yes and no. So I started talking to campers who were there because everyone was standing around like, what's going on? Should we be here? And everyone knew that some type of stabbing had happened. That seemed to have spread pretty quickly. In terms of what exactly had happened, I heard all kinds of stories from people. Some people said, "Oh, there's someone out there stabbing everyone." Some people were saying, "Oh, I heard it's just false alarm." So it was pretty hard to, and of course, law enforcement, they weren't saying anything, understandably, and I didn't want to press them too hard. They were dealing with, I didn't know if it was family, but grieving people, they were searching the area, it appeared. They had the trail completely blocked off. So it was difficult to get much out of them. And then again, like you said, there was no cell service. So I had to reach out to Arkansas State Police, their PIO. But to do that, I had to leave Devil's Den. So anytime I needed to get information in or out, it was about a 20-minute detour.
Well, so how long does it take you to get the information from police to learn exactly, like put some facts in this, exactly what had happened?
About 3 hours, probably.
Okay.
And the information we were given that day was that I believe a stabbing had happened. Suspects, they're still searching for a suspect, and that's about it. That's all we knew. We didn't know until the next day or even the day after that it was Clinton and Cristen Brink. We didn't really know anything. And I wanted to bring up that's why that night, I believe I was with Luke, and we're out at the entrance to Devil's Den. We're going live at 10 o'clock talking about, they're looking for a suspect. But at the time, we really didn't know anything. All we knew was that there had been a stabbing. And so I got a little bit of pushback because I went live from inside the vehicle. And
Well, hey,
Right.
what else do you do? There's someone out there who maybe have just committed a horrific crime and you want to stay safe.
Yeah, well, and it's pitch black out there. So, and I tried to show that from that shot from inside the vehicle because we went to set up the live shot outside, and I'm looking around every breaking branch. I'm thinking, oh wait, there's like a killer on the loose. I'm getting back in the car.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that you say that the community around you, you're thinking that they're thinking the same exact thing, and you're not getting anything from police.
Right.
What was the community's reception of that? How did they feel about not getting any answers?
I think people were worried. I the next day, or maybe the day after next, I went around and just kind of talked to people who live near Devil's Den. And people were freaked out. A lot of people wouldn't open the door for me because they didn't know if I was, nobody knew what was going on. And so there was definitely a sense of fear.
Absolutely. Yeah, I understand that. So let's talk about how when we discover who the suspect is, how does that all come about?
Well, I think what happened at first was there was a picture that was shared of someone from behind. And so that was the first thing that was put out to the public from law enforcement. It was a guy standing, he was wearing a ball cap, looked like a duffel bag on his back. And so that's all we saw. So once that picture started spreading, people, kind of started sharing stuff online. I remember people were posting that they had seen a car leave with the license plate covered up with tape. And so in terms of when a suspect was identified, I'm not sure if we knew it was Andrew McGann until Andrew McGann was arrested.
Well, wasn't it the original, the sketch, the black and
Sure.
white
Yeah,
sketch?
yeah.
Did that come from Clinton and Kristen Brink's daughters, ages 7 and 9? Did they give a description to police?
I'm not sure if police ever told us where they got that. I think they said witnesses. Now, from the little we do know, it sounds like the daughters did witness what happened, which is terrible, at least to Clinton. So it could have been the daughters. It also could have been people who saw McGann flee the scene. I don't think they ever confirmed to us, and we don't know how this incident started. Right, that's still something we don't know. That'll be brought forward now that there's. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we don't know exactly how it started. I do believe law enforcement said that Clinton and Kristen made a heroic effort to save their daughters and to protect their family. So I believe the daughters probably witnessed their dad standing up for them, and then the mom, um, you know, took them to leave, and then she went back to help her
Yeah,
husband.
and let's talk about that for a minute because Arkansas State Police, they did a live press conference talking about this, and they described the moment whenever, Kristen takes the daughters and takes them probably, I would say, what, like is it a half a mile trail long?
Yeah, it's a long trail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
takes them most of the way,
Hmm.
tells them to keep going, and then goes back to help her husband.
Yeah.
That's just so heartbreaking, that and so those little girls, how far do you think they had to walk to get out of that trail to get help, to run into someone else that they found, at the end of the path?
Sure. Hopefully not too far. Hopefully someone saw them pretty quickly and were able to take them to that visitor center and call 911. And forgive me if I'm wrong. I believe in that 911 call, one of the girls is talking to law enforcement. So hopefully um, someone was able to get them out of there pretty quick.
So let's go back to we were talking about the drawing put out of the suspect, the
Hmm.
rendering, and then the photo comes out, the color of from behind.
Yeah.
So at that point, they're then looking at the vehicle. That's going to be a big part of this case, right? I want to talk to you about that here in just a minute, and we're going to really dive into it because it's a big part of this case. I feel like it leads to the arrest of the suspect, this vehicle. We're going to talk about that, ask Bo some questions about it since he was there. Oh, let's start there. So we have the photos coming out of the suspect, the rendering, and the one on the trail. But it comes down to this vehicle. What do you know? What starts coming out? What are you reporting at the time?
Sure. So the vehicle description that's released, I believe, at the beginning, I believe, did match the vehicle that Andrew McGann was found driving. And I don't know, I believe it was a Kia. Um,
A Stinger, a Kia Stinger.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. And now law enforcement never released how they found this car. They never released to us exactly the methods they use. However, during this investigation, we were speaking to law enforcement experts about the technology that law enforcement possesses, the different ways these manhunts can occur, and some of the technology they use. An expert I spoke with at the time, before they had even found the car, explained that law enforcement is able to look at a certain area, and when they track cell phones, they're able to see when those cell phones leave a certain area. So
Wow.
that may have led them to, oh, well, this phone left this time, that's connected to this person and that car. So also ring cameras. A lot of the houses on that road leading into Devil's Den have ring cameras. So maybe law enforcement were able to go to those houses and say, hey, can we take a look at this time? Did it pick up anything? Because when McGann was arrested, I believe the first question law enforcement asked, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, is whose car does this belong to? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And, that's something I feel like when the trial happens, of course, we're going to learn a lot more how that unfolded. It's certainly going to be so interesting to know. But I know they did say, in the press conference that they did that after however that happened, they narrowed it down by, pulling those types of vehicles, like from the DMV, taking the, how many Kia Stingers black are there and who drives. And so they land on Andrew McGann.
Mhm.
Okay. Start from there. What do you know about how they tracked him down and the day that they arrested him?
Well, I know that he was getting his hair cut,
Yeah.
clearly wanting to hide. I believe the barbers at Lupita's barbershop were saying that he didn't want his hair out of his face. He wanted his hair in his face more. So he was trying to hide. And again, that car that we're talking about, I believe law enforcement released that they found evidence inside that car.
Which is
that-
parked right outside of that salon
outside of that
at the
salon.
time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right up the street in Springdale. Yeah. And so, yeah, when they made that arrest, I think right then while they were arresting him, they were searching that car. And they say that they, found evidence connecting that car at least to what happened in Devil's Den.
And they also go to his home as well, correct?
Yeah,
and
that's
and
right.
do sort of a search warrant there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't know if we ever discovered what they found in the house or what they pulled from that. I think that's all been because after the arrest, very quickly, there was a gag order put on the case very quickly. So in terms of what evidence they've been able to pull since then, But I do remember, and I do want to talk about just how big a deal that arrest was. I remember, I don't know if it was that night, maybe the next night, but Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders flew up here to talk about the arrest and talk
Right.
about the great work that Arkansas State Police did. So it was a big deal. I wasn't even working that night, but I went anyways, just because, you know, I felt so tied to everything that was happening. I had to see it in person. And it was an emotional moment. You know, I think a lot of people from watching it on TV, from, you know, learning more about the Brinks, I think a lot of people felt very emotionally tied to what happened. And so when that arrest was made, when that announcement was made with Governor Sanders, I think a lot of people, it hit people in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, in the community who, you know, maybe didn't know Clinton or Kristen Brink or weren't close to investigators involved in this case, all they hear when we didn't have a suspect name at the time, there's, you know, a madman on the loose that, you know, stabbed and killed this couple. And what am I going to do? Am I safe? So you feel really connected to that whenever you have an investment that way. But let's go back to Lapita's salon, the haircut happening there. Only got
Mhm.
half of his hair done because he was actually hired on as a school teacher at Springdale School District, only
Yeah.
days away from starting that job, right?
Right. And it's, your mind wanders places when you learn more about Andrew McGann and you learn that he's taught in Oklahoma and Texas and was let go from some of these schools. And we don't really know what led up to that and the nature of this crime. You know, it makes you wonder, it makes you concerned. But specifically when they arrested him, yes, half of his hair was cut. And that first mugshot of him is pretty,
Yeah, Adriana Ruiz. Am I saying that right?
I
Adriana
believe so.
Ruiz.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the woman there who was giving the haircut to Andrew
Hmm.
McGann. We were actually able to speak to her. Let's go ahead and take a listen of her experience meeting Andrew McGann.
His eyes just looked sunken, pretty kind of like soulless, is what I could describe. I did notice he didn't want anything cut from the top of his head. He wanted to hide his face. He just wanted a fade on the sides. He didn't really know what he wanted, so I kind of explained to him what kind of haircut would go well with him.
Just like you said, he
Yeah.
wanted to keep the hair in front of his face. He was at this time a very wanted man.
Yeah, and that must have been terrifying for them, you know,
Mhm.
especially because I think in a lot of these situations, even just being in some of the courtrooms I've been in with murderers, it feels bizarre. And so for them to have been in the presence of a man who was being hunted for murdering two people, I can't imagine what they were feeling immediately after that.
Absolutely. And I feel like we could talk forever about this case. There's
Mhm.
so many things, even with the gag order, there's still a
Yeah.
lot of things. But let's move forward to this going to court. Andrew McGann is arrested there at Lupita's that day, taken, booked into jail. So you expect, you know, the first hearing, preliminaries,
Mhm.
all those things. But you had quite an experience with this because they shut it down from the beginning.
From the very beginning. And that was, well, so let me backtrack a little. There is, whenever someone is arrested, they have 72 hours to do, I believe it's called a Section 8 hearing, right? It's just letting them know, hey, you've been arrested, you're being detained, right? That's all it is,
Right.
essentially. And so the media was able to see that on a television screen at the Washington County Jail. Um, I was able to get a shot kind of in a window. I'm not sure how happy they were about that, but that's okay.
You got what you could. Yeah.
You know, in this country, trials are public. You know, they are public hearings. So that, you know, window into the courtroom is fair game.
But this one didn't feel like that.
No. So the arraignment that happened a few days later, when I showed up, you know, I think CNN was there, the New York Times was there, a lot of news outlets were there. And in that Washington County jail room, all of a sudden the TV's not working, supposedly. And it appeared that a black sheet of paper had been pasted over the window.
Mhm.
So it was not a public hearing. Now, I'm glad you're giving me an opportunity to talk about this because to me, I had serious concerns about why that was happening because that is an infringement on, you know, I hate to say it, but it's an infringement on Andrew McGann's rights to a fair and public trial. And state senators here in Arkansas also had questions about why that was happening.
Mhm.
They were talking about it on the Senate floor in Little Rock. I'm sure now there could have been a good reason for that. Maybe family was there in the courtroom and didn't want cameras, and I'm sure there's a good reason. However, at the time, we were reaching out, saying, "Judge, what's up? What's going on? Why can't we see in the courtroom?" And we weren't getting an answer, and that was concerning.
So you still don't have an answer today.
Still don't have an answer. No. I think we'll probably never get an answer as to exactly why that happened. Maybe we will once the gag order is removed. But yeah, that raised some questions about what was going on. Everything since then has been very public. So
Mhm.
and that's why I, am glad I'm able to backtrack just a little bit of my criticism, because everything has been very above board since then, very public. So, family could have been in the room, which, I understand. It was a tragedy, terrible situation.
Do you think, which, I understand, this being in front of the public and how that is supposed to be, but because it's such a shocking case,
Mhm.
such maybe one that maybe Arkansas hasn't dealt with, maybe, I don't know, in the last 50 years,
Mhm.
nothing like this, that the sensitivity of it may be a reason why.
Absolutely. It absolutely could be. And I think that's absolutely fair. I think there are any number of explanations that are absolutely fair. I think when you're in the moment, the concern is this going to keep happening? Is because now you're starting to think, whenever a trial that's supposed to be public or a hearing, whatever it is, isn't public, you start to wonder, because that's the whole reason it's public, is to defend rights and to keep everything above board, to stop under the table things from happening, right? That's why
Mhm.
everything's public. So that's where your head goes. Now that time has passed, everything's been public. I think uh, there are any number of explanations as to why that could have happened. Definitely.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about real quick. Last questions for you. Where it's at today
Sure.
within the court system.
Yes, so I believe a trial date has been set for next year. I don't have that date off the top of my head. Um, Before that trial happens, there's going to be any number of hearings. They'll have to do an evidentiary hearing to see what evidence will be allowed in trial. That will be open to the public. So I hope to be there for that, to see what evidence they're going to, um, the defense will protest against being presented. McGann's attorneys have worked very hard, and I assume will continue to work to get the death penalty off the table in this case.
Mhm.
I don't see that happening, just because in many cases in Washington County, the death penalty is left on the table. It's up to a jury to decide what
Mhm.
they want to do with that. But yes,
Yeah, I heard the prosecutor say in that press conference, my office will not be waiving the death
they,
penalty.
no, Brandon Carter was very clear about that.
Absolutely. So I believe it's March of next year. So we got quite a while. Of course, we're certainly going to. I'm sure you're going to be there. You
Oh,
want to be
sure.
there every day watching.
Absolutely. Yeah. If it does go to trial, right? There's always, you never know what
Do
can
you, do you think that would happen though? Do you think, because that would mean there would be some sort of, I guess he would plea.
Right. So I think there's two reasons why a plea could be reached. And
Hmm.
again, not saying it will be. I have no evidence this is just me sharing my
Yeah,
experience and
yeah.
opinion. In most cases, when the death penalty is being prosecuted, it is being pushed by the family, right?
Hmm.
That is usually where that push comes from. In this case, to my knowledge, the family has not been back for the hearings. They haven't.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I hope that these little girls are moving on and getting the help they need, and not experiencing this. So one reason why a plea could be reached is that there's just no push outside the state for that, right?
Hmm.
Another reason is we have seen a um, great measures taken to not have this become some type of bonanza parade, right? Of oh, this is a huge thing, huge deal, big media presence. So if there ever was a deal, maybe, hey, we're going to offer you life in prison just to have it over, just to have it done with.
Hmm.
Who knows?
I don't know. I kind of feel like from hearing from the prosecutor during that press conference and just watching him since that, I don't think he would go that route. I mean, I feel like he feels like he can take this all the way.
Absolutely. I think it's also important to keep in mind that when this trial happens, he will no longer be the prosecutor.
Mhm.
Washington County. So we'll have to see what the new prosecutor decides.
Absolutely. Bo, thank you
Yeah,
so much
thank
for
you so
being here.
much.
Thank you for sharing your experience on this
Sure.
case. We appreciate it. Now, as we mentioned, Andrew McGann just days away from starting a teaching job within Springdale School District. But once people found that out, we started asking police, what is his background? Has he been a teacher anywhere else? And what we've been able to figure out so far that in 2022-23, he was a teacher within the Louisville, Texas school district there, but he actually resigned from that district after being put on leave. Now, the district did send out a statement saying it was due to concerns related to classroom management, professional judgment, and even student favoritism. Now, the list goes on as well. The following school year, he worked in Broken Arrow Public Schools there in Northeast Oklahoma. A statement from the school confirms that he taught fifth grade at Spring Creek Elementary. And then McGann came to Arkansas and was hired on at Springdale Public Schools. This isn't far from Devil's Den State Park at the time. You know, Joan, and I think that background was something at the time that the community was really interested in knowing. Lots of questions about it. They just wanted to know where, and we didn't realize how extensive it was until we did a little bit of digging.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I know that, you know, once we started learning not just about the recent employment, but the fact that it goes back even further than that, not to
Mhm.
mention the resignation, and as you know, yeah, it's a lot.
It's extensive for sure. And let's talk a little bit about, you know, we're waiting for the trial to come up now. That'll be March of next year. But in the meantime, you know, Arkansas State Police have been working this case from the beginning. It was theirs. And not too long ago, they held a luncheon at the headquarters and they had a message. Colonel Mike Hager, he put on his Facebook the message that they played at this Arkansas State Police luncheon. It has an interview with the two daughters, the 7-year-old and the 9-year-old. Let's go ahead and take a look at it.
I'm Mariana. I'm Christina. And this is our Arkansas State Police story. Hi, my name's Mariana. Hi, my name's Christina. And we're the Brink sisters. Today I wanted to be telling you that thank you so much for catching the bag at you or our mommy and daddy. We really appreciate it. And just to let you know, we've been doing really, really good in California with our aunt and uncle. And we've been included in volleyball. And guess what? Our grandma is our coach. And we also have lots and lots of friends. And we have good grades. Thank you so much. Bye.
You know, just to hear their voices and to know that they're doing okay. You know, Jonan, it's heartbreaking to hear, but when you feel like, you know what, I think they're okay, it just sort of makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice knowing that they have such good family members that are taking care of them currently. And honestly, you know, hearing them, I think it was 6 months out, I think is when that luncheon happened, sometime in December.
Hmm.
Hearing from them for the first time, I believe at that,
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that they're, you know, adjusting. It's because it's such a grisly story, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think this all comes down to these two parents, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, you hear people say over and over that they were great parents, they were a loving couple, everything that you would think, you know, just a good American family would be. Clinton and Kristen Brink seem to fill that role. And let's go ahead, Joan, and let's take a look at their funeral. This was put together, all their friends and family there. And this is what they had to say about them as a couple.
Clinton and Kristen shared a marriage rooted in faith, laughter, and adventure. Whether hiking as a family, kayaking, or spending days at theme parks with their daughters, they lived for the simple joys that built lasting memories.
Yeah, some pretty powerful words right there for Clinton and Kristen Brink. What a great, a great couple. They were loved by their family, their friends, and their community. All right, let's just get a quick update on what we know right now. So, again, McGann is in custody right now. We're waiting. There's been a lot of court dates, as you heard Bo mention, happen right now, which happened not long ago. We have a trial date, which will be in March of next year. So, we're going to go ahead. We'll follow that. We'll let you know what happens in that court system. And maybe do, another episode over this here on Unnatural State of Crime. Thanks so much for joining us here. We'll see you next time.